evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast, your Newcastle United podcast and the Evermore YouTube channel. I'm your host, Chris. I've been joined by our resident PK blinder and Silver Fox. We've got Paul and Lee in the house to talk all things Newcastle United this week. How are we doing, boys?
Yeah, good. You?
All good, thank you.
Very good. Yeah. See, I didn't call you what one of the viewers called you the other week, Lee. I didn't want to upset you, mate, so I went for Silver Fox instead.
Any reference to Philip Scarfield, I'm dropping off.
I can't wait for the comments to come flying in. I'm sure there'll be some.
Never jumped a queue in my life.
Well, at least you get to sit next to Holly Willoughby, mate. So that's not too bad. But we'll check out the comments in a minute. We are live tonight, guys. So as always, please jump in the comments. We love having you. It really helps the crack flow. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get stuck into this. If you like what we do, please click the like and subscribe button just under PK's chin there. We're sitting on about 1883. One chin, PK, one chin. 1883. So we're very close to 1900 and close to 2000. So smash the button. It's all free content. This we don't charge anybody for any content. We just love talking about the club, and by God, we love talking about the club right now because we're going to get stuck right in to the first topic. I'm going to come to you first, PK. You were there, mate. You watched Eddie Howe's marvellous Mags absolutely batter the Bees 5-1. What a performance. What a game, mate. What an atmosphere. Tell us a bit about your day, pal.
I had a brilliant day, to be honest. The football. Yeah, I had a great day. I had some mates up from London, so we all met as per in loco. Lee popped in to say hello with the boy. Had a few beers. Obviously, went in as normal. I sit in the Leisure Centre. Got an amazing view of the flags, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later on. Football wise, it was weird. So it was probably the first game for a long time that we were very good, right? But we sort of coasted through and hammered a team, if that makes sense. We never we weren't incredible. I think we played much better football against Manchester City than we did against Brentford. But Brentford was so poor. But you can see more and more our high press and the intensity of our forward players going at their defenders. It just forced them into those two errors, particularly the first error that when Wilson played in Murphy for the second goal. We were just so comfortable. I've seen a lot about their penalty. I must admit, it took us ages to get a half-time pint, so I had to watch it on the screen while we were necking a beer. And I actually thought, within the rules, it probably was a penalty. I wasn't too bothered about it, but, to go straight down the other end and score the third within, a minute or two or whatever, it was just such an easy game. We spoke a month ago or maybe 3 weeks ago about the upcoming threats of Mitrovic and Tony, didn't we? Obviously, Mitrovic went off after 25, 30 minutes or whatever down at Craven Cottage. Tony was absolutely anonymous. He was just shackled by that Rolls-Royce Botman, wasn't he? So from the forward back, we were just in control of that game. The amount of corners that we had, the amount of possession that we had, the amount of shots that we had, and to score 5 goals was brilliant. It was just a really good day and a comfortable battering. Does that make sense? Without us really being at our fast flowing best. I mean, Bruno coming back to full fitness makes a massive difference. We know that. And again, I know you've got some stats to show later about him, but we were just really good. Even Jacob Murphy had a second really good game in a row. There wasn't a player on that pitch that didn't play well. So, yeah, great result. We were 5th. Obviously, Man United's win against Everton. It's taken us 6th, but brilliant. We're sitting pretty, aren't we? We're doing pretty well.
Absolutely. Just had to bring that comment up, Lee, before I come to you there. I think Ash thought you were Pardew, not Schofield, mate. So I'm about to give you an 8-year contract, I think, mate. So don't stick your fingers up with him, mate. He's getting you a good deal. But just coming to you, Lee, obviously you were there with the lad. You drive all the way up, mate, from North Yorkshire. If anyone doesn't know who's you, and he's dedicated as anything, is our resident Silver Fox here. How was your day, mate? Did you love it as much as PK? And did you cry at the More Flags display, mate? I know you have been a bit teary before. Was it tears of happiness, mate?
I didn't cry this time. I must admit, I was really, really nervous for War Flags because I was in touch. I'm in touch with one of the lads who's quite key in the involvement. I'll not mention his name on here. And he'd been texting me on Friday night and Saturday morning telling me just how nervous he was because, in his words, this was the first time they'd ever had moving parts. And let me tell you, he was shaking like a shitting dog all week about how this was going to work. He was. And I think I was devastated for him that it didn't quite work as well as it potentially could have. There was a few issues with some of the signs and what have you, but I have to hand it to them. The idea was absolutely ingenious. It was to have the Sky Sports screen. It was absolutely ingenious. And I was so pleased that they managed to get the initial message, which was Simon Jordan's quote, which was that the takeover was deader than a dead thing from Deadland. And I must admit, I was stood in the stadium 5-3, and I was just thinking to myself, Jesus, what I wouldn't give to be next to Simon Jordan. Now, his permatan would have darkened by about 15 shades of red. He would have been absolutely livid because the bloke's a cock. But I think, as I say, you've got to say hats off to All Flags for just even having the idea. And you mentioned Chris Mike Ashley out at the bottom right-hand corner of the flag. I got a photograph of that Zoom. I just thought it was, as I say, I thought it was perfect. And as I say, hats off to them for thinking it. Regarding the game itself, I thought for the first 15-20 minutes, I thought we were relatively sloppy. I thought Burn for the first 15 minutes, a few misplaced passes. Longstaff, particularly, again, a few misplaced passes. And when they scored what was an offside goal, which my lad, I would say, incidentally, immediately within a second said to me, it's offside, Dad, they'll go offside. And everybody around us was like, nah, he's not going to touch on that. And he had a smug grin on his face when it got ruled off. But when that happened, I said to him, that's the wake-up call that I think they needed, and obviously it was. Because after that had been ruled out, there was only one team in the first half. Obviously, Bruno came into the game. We'll probably talk about Bruno in a bit more detail in a little while. Botman was his imperious, casual, sort of relaxed self. The man's an absolute class act. Trippier finished the first half, effectively playing as a winger. He had very, very little to do from a defensive point of view. And those two goals, I don't think we ever got out of what I would class as second or even third gear all game on Saturday. The second half, again, first 5 or 10 minutes, and I think this has been widely acknowledged, Newcastle didn't come out of the dressing room. The penalty, when it came, again, it just seemed to galvanise them a little bit. All of a sudden seemed to wake them up, sort of thing. And I think the key to the second half was the fact that Bruno, again, we'll talk about him in a little bit more detail, but he scored, obviously, I think it must have been about 90 to 120 seconds after Tony dispatched the penalty. And from then on in, it was just literally cruise control. Had we not scored so soon after their penalty, the crowd would have got nervous. The crowd would absolutely have got nervous. It had gone to 65, 70 minutes, and it was 2-1. There'd have been a little bit of tensioness and what have you. But players relaxed and the fans relaxed for the rest of the half after that third goal went in. What I will say, this might be a little bit controversial. I felt that the fans relaxed a little bit too much. I'm one of the big critics of the Etihad and the round of applause brigade as they score goals in the Premier League. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, when that fourth and even the fifth went in on Saturday, there was an element of, yes, well done, great sort of goal sort of thing. There wasn't, I mean, listen, you're not going to go rage when you're playing at home to Brentford with 4 minutes left and you make it 4-1. You're not going to be what you call hugging strangers you've never met in your life sort of thing. But I must admit, me and my lad on the way home were talking about it, and it just felt a little bit sort of, I was uncomfortable. So if next time we win 5-1 at home, look out for me in the stands, hugging complete strangers, jumping 15 rows in front of me, just to make sure that I don't fall into that trap. But yeah, overall, brilliant day. 5-1. What more can you ask?
Absolutely. I find it hard to disagree with anything that you said, lads. Just a lovely comment coming in here from Tim Bland, a new name we haven't seen before. Please subscribe to him if you haven't already. Great channel, keep up the great content. From Tim from Long Benton, but living in Crawley. Don't worry, mate. You're always a black and white, mate. You'll always be welcome on the Evermore YouTube channel comments. But yeah, just I mean, you've hit the nail on the head with some of the key points there, lads. I think you're right, Lee. The goal did wake us up. You know, I think we were. I wouldn't say we were complacent. I think we were potentially just a little bit slow out of the blocks, as you say. You know, I think Tony had that little bit of space, you know, earlier on, and then maybe Botman did kind of screw their head a little bit, and you know, then they thought, right, we just need to marshal him. I thought he marshalled him really well for the rest of the game, as PK rightly says. But when you've got a player like Bruno Guimaraes, you know, on form like he is, you can win any game. And, this, we have to show this again, because for once, Sky Sports actually spoke about Newcastle longer than 2 minutes and longer than Graham Souness just curling his lip up and whinging about his time at Newcastle United, which he's been doing again, if anyone's paid any attention to him. But they pulled up this slide for Bruno Guimaraes talking about him, and even Roy Keane complimented him as well as Roy Keane can do. But you can see there some of these stats. I mean, this is past successes under pressure. I mean, the key thing is here, look at the players that he's in the company with. You're talking about the best of the best. But if you even look at Joe Willock just underneath him as well at 84%, that is massive testament to how well Eddie Howe is getting Joe Willock play, never mind Bruno. Then you look at how he compares against other central midfielders. And I think we were doing What's Going On Monday night, and somebody made a really key comment that Bruno's been injured as well compared to a lot of these players. You look at him there, he's sitting right at the top of the tree, lads. He's 4 tackles, 9 out of 9 possible wins, 20 carries, 2.1 chances created, and 1.1 through balls. Now, I know stats can be inflated and everything else, but I mean, this guy is the real deal. He really is. And I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit of detail in a minute about how you get the best out of him. But we signed him as a defensive midfielder, and he just looks like he can be everything. He doesn't have to be one position, does he? He can be everything. But how do we get the best out of Bruno long term? Do you think, lads? Anyone who can take this. Do we need to push him further up, or do we just let him play, just let him be free and let him do what he wants to do? How do we do that? How do we fix that?
So there was a little bit of criticism earlier in the season because he wasn't getting assists and wasn't getting goals because he was sitting in too much of a deep lying position, and they were saying, he's almost playing as, I hate calling it a 6, I would rather call it a 4. David Batty 4, for example.
I love a bit of Batty.
For me, 6 is centre half, and anybody tells you otherwise is just bloody wrong, right?
It's old school, PK, old school, mate.
Oh, I am old school. I'm old, right? Lee knows that. So for me, they were saying, he sits too deep, then he can't get forward enough, blah, 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 blah. But, you look at those stats, and those stats said that he's got 20 carries. Can't really, 20 carries suggests he's certainly playing a lot further forward the pitch. And 2 goals on Saturday suggests that as well. So do you need him in a particularly fixed position? No, you look at the best teams around. They've got fluid midfielders where they'll just slot in for each other. Willock will slot in if Bruno goes bombing forward. Joe Linton, when he's playing, he'll sit deep. Longstaff will sit deep where need be. I know we've got that conversation to have. You don't need to say, right, there's your fixed position. It's not the 1980s and the 1990s where you were this was your position. Players are multifaceted now and multi-talented, and they can play in whatever position they want. So if you've got 3 in the midfield, they can easily just switch about. And if they're good enough to do it, and they're good enough footballers, and they're coached, if they clearly are coached very well now, then they can just be fluid.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well roll into this one, Lee, just as PK's kind of brought it in a little bit there. So talking about the midfielders that we do have at the minute, I know Sean Longstaff gets a lot of criticism. I think he's been a lot better recently. I think he's certainly coming back into finding a bit of a game. I mean, we all want Sean to do well. He's a Geordie lad. He seems like a lovely kid as well, to be fair. All Newcastle fans really want Sean to do well. But, I mean, I can't help but thinking for Sean to be, I'd say, a permanent fixture in this first team, I think when we start moving up and qualifying for Europe, which we'll come on to in a minute, he'll maybe find himself right down the pecking order. But, looking at Sean at the minute, Lee, do you think if he learns how to kind of sit and position himself as the defensive one of the 3, do you think he can get in and stay there even when Shelby comes back? Or do you think when Shelby's back, he's out straight away? What do you think?
Unfortunately not. And as you say, we all love what you call a homegrown player to be done in the black and white stripes at Barrack Road every fortnight. I mean, the lad's had a difficult couple of years, hasn't he? Let's be honest. Yeah. I mean, he had a really nasty injury in March 2019 that he suffered at West Ham. He was out for a long period of time. When he came back to not Rafa Benitez, but he came back to Steve Bruce. And as much as you laugh, I think that had quite a significant impact on him from a playing style, from a confidence perspective. I mean, you hear the
young
phrase
player
Bruce.
as well, Lee. A young player at a really important part of his career as well, mate. Yeah.
You hear the phrase Bruced, and there was not a player in the Newcastle squad that was more Bruced, if you like, than Sean Longstaff. I also think the situation with his brother might have had an impact on him. Yeah, he's a professional, what have you, but his brother's future was up in the air. He'd been loaned out and what have you, and he wasn't Player of the Month. That kind of helped. It's still his brother. So I think he's had a difficult couple of years. But as you say, in the last few games, he has done well. He seems to have rediscovered not quite the levels that he was March 19, because March 19, he was the next big thing. There was this daft talk about Man United spunking 50 million on him and what have you. But he's getting closer and closer to those levels than any time in the past 18 months. So I was really pleased to see the lad notch at Fulham last week, because I do think from a confidence point of view that would have done him the world of good. Listen, he puts himself around. He's got good energy, protects the back four, but he is prone to making the wrong decisions at times when he's playing in that role just in front of the back four. I mean, he has prone to giving the ball away or being dispossessed in our final third of the pitch. One thing that frustrates me a lot when he is in that defensive role, he gets caught square on a lot of time, and teams pass around him very easily. Yeah. And he seems to have the turning circle of an articulated lorry, the lad, to be perfectly honest with you. So for me, listen, if you've got a fully fit, flying Bruno, Willock, Joe Linton, Shelby, does Longstaff get a start? I genuinely don't think so. What I do think is the sort of player you want around. Yeah, so for these individuals who are coming in who aren't from the area and what have you, I think he's a good pro. Yeah, he'll keep them grounded. He'll obviously get across to them what it means to the area and to be a Geordie and things along those lines. And at 24, we know now he's never going to be a world beater. But as somebody that you want in your 25-man squad at the start of the season, absolutely, why not? But as I said, for me, he's not going to be a starter when we've got a fully fit midfield.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, of course, PK, go on.
I can just jump in. I think for years and years and years, we've been so turgid and we've been knocked out of the cup so early that we've always said, this is our 11 and this 11 needs to play every week. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying we're ready for this, right? But we're going to call it later. Are we ready for European football, etc.? Football's a squad game. The Premier League's a squad game. There's a lot of games. I think there's no mistake in the fact that if players get overplayed too much, that they get injured. So is there any harm? Is there any harm in having options and competition for places? I think that can only improve performances when players the likes of, I don't know, whoever, Shelby, knew he was getting a game week in, week out, month in, month out, and there was no pressure on, there was no competition. You get lax, you get complacent. Same with Wilson. Same with, Wilson potentially still might be number one on the team sheet every single week. There's competition in nearly every position now. And I really like that because it keeps the players on their toes, but it also keeps them fresh. So you might, for Man United on Sunday, you might pull Longstaff out and put Joe Linton in. Who knows? So, it's good to have options. It's nice to have options for the first time in a long time. And anybody can slot into that system because Eddie Howe has coached them and is coaching them to play the system that he wants to play. So everybody knows their job, which under our, Baron of Bacon before that, nobody had a fucking clue. Get it to Maxi and let him run, right? That was it. That was it. So I think...
Don't worry, mate. Don't worry, mate. We'll have a little bit on him in a minute. I can't help but fry that bacon more. But
if I could just come back to the original question about playing Bruno potentially in that defensive role. For me, absolutely not, for two reasons. You play in that defensive role, I think the likelihood of an injury or a serious injury is far increased because the expectation is you're going to put yourself about. You're going to be biting into tackles. We need to keep Bruno as far away from that sort of shite as we possibly can. Yeah, and for somebody who's come in and has been dubbed not a goal scorer, not creative and what have you, I think that's all a stat quite recently. Since he signed, he's at least our equal top scorer. So the lad knows where the net is. He knows where the net is. He's creative. For me, he has to be given the opportunity to push further up the pitch and leave the spade work and the tackling and the protection of the back four to your likes of your Shelbys, your Joe Lintons, your Willocks. For me, Bruno, push him up, and I think you can go to another level again.
Absolutely. What worries me a little bit, Ash's comment there, I've just kept it up for a little bit about Shelby and Bruno being, the partnership would be insane, injury aside. I think you're right because Shelby does take that time on the ball, and he slows down the pace a little bit to allow people like Bruno to make those runs. But then Shelby has got the vision to find that pass. But what worries me a little bit about Shelby in a game like against the City or against the Liverpool, when they get a little bit more on form and the manager isn't whinging at journalists for asking normal questions, when teams like that, when they're attacking at you with real kind of vigor and real pace, Shelby hasn't got the pace to keep up with that kind of relentless attack, and he can make silly tackles and he can get himself in trouble, yellow cards earlier on, walk that tightrope. I think eventually, if Bruno's going to be pushed further forward, which I think he will be, the way he's playing, we're going to have to go and get a proper number 6, a proper defensive midfielder. There was talk about Alvarez from Ajax, and he's a great player. But I think, Ajax wanted nearly 40 million quid for him. If he has a good World Cup, they'll want even more for him in November. So a lot of these teams aren't going to sell these players now because the World Cup could add 20, 30 million quid to them if they have good tournaments. So they're not going to be stupid and do that. Just on Stu's comment there about Willock, just before I get your lads' take on Willock, I thought Willock was brilliant. I think Willock's doing a lot of work off the ball. Me and Mark did a really good video on how Willock's changed from a goal-scoring midfielder, a bit like a Frank Lampard arriving in the box, scoring a goal type player, to almost a complete midfielder. And at first, I was kind of a little bit pissed off with it because I wanted the goals, I wanted the player to do that. But when you look at what Bruno is offering, as you rightly said, Lee, Willock can be more of a runner, be more of a ball carrier, be more of a guy who's going to get you 10, 15 yards at the park and win your free kick. How did you think Willock played for you, PK? And obviously, how has he played moving forward? He's not got the goals, but Eddie Howe's confident they're coming. Are you impressed with Willock overall? Do you think he deserves to stay in the side?
I do, yeah, as it goes. I think that he's probably our most athletic player, He is super fit.
Engine's unbelievable, mate. Yeah.
He's played every game for us, hasn't he? I think he played nearly the full game against Tranmere in the Cup as well. Whereas I think he was the only player that was selected in that team out of 11. So he's played every single game for us, I think. He's desperate for a goal. I get that. He's put some wide. He had that one, it was the own goal against Palace. Callum Wilson snaffled one off him at Fulham. He needs that goal, but I think his overall play, he's becoming a much more intelligent footballer than, as you said, someone who just arrives late in the box and scores goals. So I really like him as a footballer. Just very, very unlucky that he hasn't got his goals yet, but they'll come.
Yeah. I mean, that one against Palace, Lee, he should have had a goal there, if not a bloody penalty at least, mate, against Palace.
He should. I mean, one thing I will say about Willock, I love the fact he's turning into a bit of a shithouse. One of the best things I saw on Saturday was the video of him walking past Brentford's dressing room, singing "Easy Like Sunday Morning" at the top of his voice post match. I thought, that's class. That's class. But as you said, Paul, he's desperate for a goal, and I think Howe's comments landed with him on Saturday, because you could see there was one chance that was blocked, kicking towards the Gallagher. It was blocked by a defender, and he was absolutely spitting. He was gutted. He's desperate for a goal. For me, the fact that Bruno is so good helps to improve Willock, and the reason for that is because teams pay Bruno so much attention. You find teams trying to double up on Bruno, and what that's allowing, it's allowing Willock that little bit extra space to pick the ball up and travel with the ball. He can pick the ball up 20 yards, two players on Bruno, and the ball drops to Willock, and he's got 20 yards worth of space to run into. And as you say, from an engine point of view, I don't think we've got another player like him. For me, he's a definite starter at the moment. He really is. If he gets a goal, he could easily score another 3, 4, 5, even 6 this season and watch him fly. But that is the only thing at the moment that's missing, but it will come.
He'll take off completely if he gets a goal, mate. He'll go to the next level. I really do believe that. Mark's made a good point there. A proper old school midfielder is Bruno. He can play anywhere. He kind of reminds me a little bit. I mean, we're going back a little bit here. When you look back at the Brian Robson days and players like that, Brian Robson could play anywhere in the midfield because he was that good. You know what I mean? And players like that can do that. And we're so lucky we've got a player like Bruno at the club at the minute, guys. It's absolutely fantastic. There's some comments there about some commercial things. We're going to come on to that in a second, actually. But we're going to move on to the next category here. Obviously, the game. We're buzzing from the game. The way we've been playing. Can we stay top 6? This is a very interesting subject. Just before the lads give their opinions, Mark's beat off Paulie now. He was going to join us, but he banged in a few stat slides as he does before he disappears. So just before we come to the answer to that question, let's chew on this a little bit, everybody. What a difference a year makes. So this was Newcastle United after 9 games last season versus this season. The Barrow of Bacon, as PK mentioned before. So 0 wins versus 3, 4 drawn versus 5, 5 lost versus 1 loss, which is very important. We scored 17 goals and we scored 11 that season. We conceded 20 goals. We've already conceded 9. We've got 14 points versus the 4. We were 19th under the Barrow of Bacon, who thankfully is out of work again. And we are now 6th under Eddie Howe. Can we stay there? A little bit on the stats before we get stuck in, boys. You can see there, look at the rankings we're in for some of these attacking stats. 3rd for the XGs, 5th for the goals, 3rd for the shots, 4th for the shots on target. You can see loads of 3rds, loads of 5th. Defensively as well, we mentioned a bit about the Rolls-Royce players and the likes of Botman. Block shots, 5th. 7th as well for in terms of errors. So we're making very little errors at the back. So there's loads of stats to chew on there. So I'm going to come to you first, Lee, on this one, mate. Top 6. You're normally quite the voice of reason. Let's not get too carried away, mate. Have you checked your passport, mate? Are you just making sure you're all up to date yet, or what?
Well, when you sent me the agenda for what we're going to talk about, I looked at can we stay top 6, and I thought absolutely no chance. You're all on drugs. But I thought rather than just coming on and poo-pooing the idea, I'll have a look into it and see if I can find out a little bit of what it would take, sort of thing. So currently we're on 9 games, 14 points. We've got 6 games before we break for the World Cup. Now, I've looked at the 6 games we've got, and it's not inconceivable that we could pull for 10 to 12 points from those next 6 games. And that's with a loss, a couple of draws and what have you, potentially even an unexpected draw at home against the team. If we were to get 10 to 12 points in those 6 games, that takes us on to either 24, 26 points, which gives us an average points per game of around about 1.6 to 1.75 over the course of, depending on how many we got. That rolled over the course of a season would take us to around about 60 to 65 points. Now, the average points required to finish 6th over the last 5 years is 62. Now, it's not as if we haven't played anybody either. We've played Liverpool, we've played City, we'll have played Chelsea, we'll have played Manchester United, we'll have played Tottenham by that point. And as I say, I'm including those fixtures in the potential to get 10 to 12 points. So if we can get to the World Cup and pick up those 10 to 12 points, we are bang on course. We're absolutely bang on course. What that will do as well, it'll put us in such a strong position coming into the January transfer window that we will be an attractive proposition. I think these next 6 fixtures are really, really crucial for us to be an attractive proposition in January for the likes of Maddison and even potentially Diaby, if rumours are to be heard. Couple that with, we've played 4 games without Maxi, Wilson, Bruno, Joe Linton and what have you, and Shelby all season. If we can get a fully fit squad, or as close to damn it a fully fit squad, we can pick up some decent points in the next 6 games, and then we can hit January in a good position. Yeah, I'm looking at it, and I've convinced myself. I've absolutely convinced myself today that it's possible. The other thing I would say, the teams that you're competing for that place in the table, your Wolves, your Villas, your West Hams, your Evertons, they've had a shite start to the season. They've had a terrible start to the season. Yet we've already got a head start on them. Yeah, and we've also got a lot of them to play at home. So for me, what do you call it? I looked at your message and I was like, not a chance, Chris. Yeah, and within an hour, I convinced myself we're finishing 6th, at least. So, yeah, short answer, yes. You've just had the long answer.
We've got a great comment from Davey. He's going top 4, mate. He's already here in that chat. It's League Music PK, is Davey. So he's right in there, mate. Are you feeling as positive as Lee's just been there? Now he's Rachel Riley the points total, mate? Or are you a bit cautious?
I think the Silver Stato said it all there, didn't he? Jesus.
The Silver Stato, I like that.
So I've done absolutely no research on this other than the fact that we're currently sitting in 6th. We're playing really good fucking football at the minute. We're scoring goals and we're not scoring many. The only thing to add, yes, yeah, Lee's right at the end of the day. If we can be teetering around 5th, 6th, even 7th by World Cup and the January window, you're right. It absolutely gives us an opportunity to get a James Maddison to stick a transfer request in, because we're going to have a hell of a chance of getting into Europe. I know Keith Downey, if you haven't seen the show last week, have a look at it on YouTube.
Your best mate. You owe him a pint, by the way. Don't forget that. He's going to come and get that off you when he sees you.
Yeah, I owe him a beer, yeah. You know, he was saying he doesn't think Maddison will come here. He wants European football. I know, but he might have half a season without European football if he comes here and fires us into Europe. So can we get top 6? Fuck it. Why not? Why not? We need to keep our key players fit, obviously. We need to beat a Bournemouth at home and a Palace at home. We do. Yeah. But then, you know, we picked up a point at home to Man City, didn't we, where we were expecting not to get a bean. So, you know, let's see what happens on Sunday first and foremost when we head down to the Theatre of Nightmares, which we'll cover off in a bit. But can we do it? I don't fucking know. Yeah, well, I hope.
Thanks for that professional insight as always, PK. We love that. I'll have to get Mark to clip
Silver Stato.
We'll just say the bottom. Please subscribe for professional content. I don't fucking know. But yeah, I mean, get my take on this, lads. To be fair, I think you've covered it very well. You know, teams will be scared of us now in the league. I think Sunday is a great test, a good litmus test. We'll come on to that in a minute, but that'll show us how far we've come, because I think Manchester United will be scared of us on Sunday. I genuinely mean that. You know, we'll have players that they're worried about. And I think going into that game for the first time in a long time, I know you're going, Lee, we'll cover that in a minute, but for the first time in a long time, you know, Mags will be going to that game thinking, fuck it, we'll have these today. You know, whereas in the past, we've always thought, oh, shit, we're going to get battered here, or, you know, we'll be lucky for staying in the game or whatnot. But I really do think that the way we're playing, and the togetherness and just the confidence Eddie Howe's got in these players. Even people like Murphy are swaggering around with confidence, which is unbelievable. So if we can keep that going, certainly the World Cup is a target point. Eddie Howe's a very smart man. He will have that little target of those games until the World Cup, then he'll press the reset button and he'll go again. But on the Maddison point, I'm really confident the Maddison deal will happen. And I tell you why I think it'll happen, because I don't think they would be as keen on going back from if he hadn't showed interest that he wanted to come in the summer. And I generally think the way we're playing, the confidence, the buzz, you know, we're going to talk about how the club's progressing off the pitch as well in terms of, you know, commercial revenue and kind of status and everything else in the game. He'll be looking at that, Maddison, thinking, this is a big move for me. This could get me England recognition. This could take me up a level. And if we're in and around the European positions, which I think we will be by then, even if we're 7th, 8th, there'll only be 2 or 3 wins in it. And I generally do think that, you know, we are going to be in a real strong position to get players like him. The Diaby one's an interesting one, because potentially, if Miggy keeps going the way he is, that whole position might change in terms of the priorities. Don't get me wrong. I think long term we definitely do need to replace somebody on that right-hand side, because Miggy's form won't last forever. Sorry, PK. It will not last forever. I know you love the man. But
well, it's fine. We can shift him over to the left and pie off Saint-Maximin.
Well, to be honest with you, Saint-Maximin's an interesting topic. Let's bring that up, because, you know, this is a big season for Maxi. We said that before in previous pods. Lee, I'm going to come at you with this one, because I know what you think about Maxi and how he frustrates you. You love him, but he frustrates you, much like me as well. Now, Maxi really needed a brilliant season this season, and he had little spells of it earlier on, but the injuries have come back. He's got more bandages than Holby City again. He's in and he's out. He's pissing around with his weird little card game world that he's doing in the background and all of that. I still think Eddie Howe might have a slight doubt about him. And if there's a possibility to get in players like Maddison, who's shown loads of maturity and professionalism with the way Leicester have been struggling now. He's put himself out there in front of the cameras and everything else. He's earned loads more plaudits. And you've got somebody like Diaby. Maxi really needs to step up, Lee, doesn't he, to stay in this squad and not be a casualty of maybe Eddie Howe making a high-profile cut.
Yeah, I was asked the very same question pre-season. I think it might have been yourself, Chris, on here. And there was a whole debate about, do we cut our losses with him and bring in a replacement sort of thing? And I said back then, this is a huge, huge season for him. He's gone from being biggest fish in the pond under the previous incumbent to he's just another player now. I mean, that sounds disrespectful to the bloke, because, listen, he's got the potential, in my opinion, to be one of the top 10 players in the world. The talent is just like beyond belief what he can do with a football. But for me, the biggest question over Maxi at the moment is his, I'm going to say commitment to the cause. He's got extracurricular interests with his Helios and what have you. We've all seen his temperament when he's on the pitch, when he's off the pitch and what have you. It can be a little bit suspect at times. I mean, throwing tantrums on the pitch and whatever when he's been fairly, what you call it, challenged on the ball sort of thing. I mean, he looks like a fucking mummy every time you see him at the minute. I mean, you get to the end of the season, you're not going to be able to see a single, what you call, piece of skin on the lad. He's going to be bandaged up to here. And I just think he needs to refocus. Because with the best will in the world, I don't think Max is going to get a bigger club than Newcastle. I certainly don't think he's going to get a bigger club than Newcastle if he carries on the way he's going. But for me, this is a make or break season. If the rest of the season carries on the way it appears to have started, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him pedal next season, next summer. Yeah, I really wouldn't.
It's a good comment by Ash there. Diaby's supposed a bit after the season. Do we want him? It's interesting because Isak was coming off a poor season, wasn't he? We got him cheaper than we should have done. But I do love the comment there. Eddie Howe could get a tune out of a violin with knee strings, Ash, absolutely. But I think that could really work in our favour. And we've got William Smith, who called you Will Smith there, mate. I thought you were going to slap us in the comments. Diaby was a beast on Saturday, absolutely superb. I mean, good players have dips of form up and down. It shows character if Diaby can get back from that. But like I say with Isak, we saw how good Isak was. But we probably got him realistically 20 million quid cheaper because he had a bad season. So I'm all for that. If Diaby comes in a bit cheaper than he could do. But I think going to the Maxi point again, lads, you're right. I mean, I think he's a smashing player, as you say, Lee, but he is still that element of doubt. You don't know what you're going to get with him. He's either going to be magnificent or shite. I don't think there's any grey area, is there, PK, with Maxi?
No, there's not. And you know what the key is? For the last, is this his third season now or his fourth? His third season?
Fourth season. Yeah.
For 3 years, we've been reliant on him full stop. If he didn't play. Now he is just a squad player. Just another footballer, like Lee said. He isn't. There's no player more talented and more skillful in the Premier League than him.
That's a cracker.
But he's got to work for the squad now. And he's got to work for the team, and his attitude's got to be right. He's got to stop fucking on with frigging board games and nonsense that he does, and just focus on getting fit, staying fit, getting in the team, and providing. Not just trying to beat 4,000 players and then, falling over, looking for a penalty, waving his arms about. He's brilliant, he's talented, but he's just got to fit in with what Eddie Howe wants.
Definitely. What I will say, in his defence, until he got injured, he did seem to be less inclined to use those, God, I'm going to use the word histrionics. He did seem a bit more inclined to choose the simple pass. He did seem a bit more inclined to do a little bit more tracking back. So maybe it might simply be a case of his injury simply came at the wrong time.
Very possibly.
It's now 6 weeks since he scored that goal against Wolves. And had he not done his hammy, we might have seen that continue over the course of the past few weeks. And we're not even having this conversation. Maddison who? We might be saying Derby who?
Well,
It's everything that goes with it. While he's out injured, I don't want to see him, playing cards with Adam Pearson. I don't want to see him on TikTok dancing in a pair of Air 90 or whatever they called this week. I want to see him back on a pitch playing football. Yeah, and as I said, it might just be a badly timed injury that's led to this conversation taking place, and that might be unfair on him. He might get back to the way he started the season.
Massive credit to Murphy that we are not missing Saint-Maximin at the minute. Massive credit and a lot of humble pie to be eaten by everybody.
Oh, especially me, mate, who calls Murphy the scarecrow because he hasn't got a brain. He has been brilliant the last couple of games, to be fair. But some of the comments there from, I think Mark was bang on before. We all said give Maxi the season, as Lee said there. But if you start bringing in players of real quality in January, and I think if we're close to Europe, we will push that button. We're going to come on this in this next section here as to why we might be able to get those deals over the line. Geordie Jack's right as well that Maxi's got undoubted raw talent. He's got to be willing to learn from Eddie Howe and learn how to apply that talent, And I think he has worked well with Howe, but someone like Bruce is probably better for Maxi because he just lets him be free and do what he wants to do. Whereas Eddie Howe will want him disciplined and drilled, and we'll soon see if Maxi wants that in the long term. But moving on to the next section, lads, and I'm going to come to you first on this one, Lee, because I know you did a bit of prep. We wound you up beforehand because we always spring a surprise on Lee, but this time he was ready for this. So more players on the board. So there's news that we are going to have a new board member. It's going to be, I think it's the new commercial director or commercial manager, I believe. So it's a chap called Peter Silverstone, who was previously at Arsenal beforehand. And Lee's been doing his homework, so I'm going to pass it over to you, mate. Tell us a little bit about Silverstone.
I did half an hour's worth of reading up on the fella today. I mean, he was Chief Commercial Officer at Arsenal for 4 years. Apparently, he was intrinsical in securing the Emirates sponsorship deal for Arsenal, which is worth something like 200 million quid over, I think, 4 to 5 years. He was key in bringing the Adidas deal to Arsenal, who they superseded Puma, and apparently the 60 million that they're getting paid by Adidas is double what Arsenal were receiving from Puma. So his track record on that front seems really, really good. He has a tendency, from what I've been able to find out today, to look for more blue chip companies. So he was key in bringing Intel into partnership with Arsenal, but at the same time he's going for these blue chip companies, these multi-million dollar deals. He's also very keen on any partners that the club brings in, understand the heritage of the club. I went on to LinkedIn, I had a read about him on there and what have you. And one of his statements is that any partners that he links to the club need to understand who we are, who the club is, and learn about the club's history and its heritage. So as well as looking at partners like Intel, Emirates, and Adidas for Arsenal, he's also sort of pushing them to go down the route of understanding what makes the club tick, what makes the club work. So, I mean, for me, that's a win-win. It is. We've missed a Freddie Fletcher type for the last 25 years. Freddie Fletcher was an absolute marmite. You either loved him or you hated him. But one thing that bloke did, he brought money through that door. He brought money through that door. He brought commercial revenues in to the nth degree sort of thing. The thing that for me today, though, again, it's just another step, another building block in towards the club becoming what eventually could become a superpower. I mean, we've got Eels. Yeah, so what do you call it? Nobody will be watching us tonight because they'll all be listening to Darren Eels on BBC Radio Newcastle. Excuse me. So we've got Eels. We've got Ashworth. Yeah. Now these are two guys at the top of their profession in the roles that they undertake. We've brought in this Silverstone fella, who again, he's coming from previously having worked for Arsenal. This guy's at the top of his profession. He's one of the elite chief commercial officers. He's not a director. He's a chief commercial officer. And it's just another building block towards Newcastle becoming the club that we hope will challenge over the next 5-10 years. I mean, but it's not just those high-profile appointments, those three people that I've just mentioned. The club appointed a new head of supporter services, a lady called Sarah Metcalf, who I'm fortunate enough to have had a few conversations with through the trust. There was no fanfare about the fact that they'd appointed a new head of supporter services, whose job it is to make sure the club engages in the correct way with the fan base.
Which is so
That's
important.
her job.
It's so important. It's been neglected for so many years as well, mate, hasn't it?
Yeah. But again, there was no fanfare. There's so many appointments being made off the radar that people just simply aren't aware of. Yeah, obviously the big appointments like today's, like Eels, like Ashworth, they need the fanfare. But the structure that's been put in place off the radar, the club's no longer a shell. The club was an absolute husk of a football club. And it's just being built and built and built on a daily basis. And it's great. It's far too long coming.
Yeah. I had to track back a bit further than Saint-Maximin did there to find this comment, PK, but I wanted to bring this up in line with this conversation. So Mark had said that, do you think the salary cap of 120k will be increased in the summer where we get better sponsorship in? Now, this guy, Silverstone, has been brought in to do this. Apparently, the key to bring him in, as Lee rightly said there, is to grow those commercial reputations and revenue streams with massive blue chip companies. Now, and it's also to keep a grip on the FFP and allow us to become a superpower in football. We've spoke at length about this 120k cap. Yeah. It's great to keep it because it stops you tipping over the edge. But if he can start to do that and bring in those deals, I mean, he was instrumental in the Amazon documentary for Arsenal too, and I know we've talked about that. I've got reservations about it, but do you think if this guy can start doing what he's paid to do, we might see that cap slowly increase, and then we can maybe go for the bigger name players? Or again, you got your no dickhead policy, mate. So we need to make sure we stay clear of that. So.
Yeah, I don't want players coming for the money because then they're just fucking dickheads, aren't they?
Fucking Mbappe, he's not coming. He's an arse. No one him.
Well, one of the comments earlier, you might want to bring it up, said Mbappe's on like 900 fucking grand a week or something like that. I never want to play like that. Absolute lunacy. It's in the comments. One of the lads said it earlier.
I'm going to find it, mate. I'll go find it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we'll break that 120k a week cap. Of course we will. But we need to bring more commercial revenue in to do it. There you go. So BT said it there.
Well done, yeah. BT. My God, 900 grand a week.
Yeah, look, Man City don't play 900 grand a week for anybody.
No.
They pay a basic salary, then they pay a lot. They go heavy on performance related pay, which is the way we need to in the future, as opposed to, lumping out 500 grand a week, which is fucking ludicrous. We can't do that anyway because of our commercial revenue. We've got a new chief commercial officer. I guess the big talking point and the big one that we probably haven't got time to discuss tonight, but you might want to pick up another time, is the renaming rights of St James's Park.
Yeah, I've seen this earlier on, yeah.
I've got my own thoughts on it. I've got no problem with them tagging on a sponsor if it's going to give us 200 million quid over 3 or 4 years, because everyone will still call it St James's Park, right? I don't care. And I've been going a long time. But, there is that balance on the heritage and the tradition. Of course there is. But you know what? We can't be stuck in the 18 and 1900s here. We've got to move forward with the times. We've got to bring these commercial deals to the table that will allow us to get to the next level, that will allow us to increase our capping from 120 to 200 grand a week and then onwards from there. And that's when we will attract the bigger players, because we'll also be playing European football as well. If you're playing Europa League football or Champions League football, you're not paying footballers 30 grand a week or 40 grand a week. It just isn't the case, is it? You are paying them the next level money to attract them to a bigger football club, a global football club.
The reason the fan base came apart at the seams when Ashley renamed the stadium, I don't think it was because of the fact that he renamed the stadium. I think it was entirely the way he went about it. He tried to sort of frame it as this is an advertisement for somebody to come in and take the naming rights. He did it without any sort of engagement with the fan base about this is what I'm going to look to do. He just announced it.
It was like one of them, wasn't it? It was like he stuck his fingers up at the club and just said, "I'm doing this anyway."
And he framed it as this is to showcase what it could be. I'm sorry, there was nobody on the face of the earth, no company was going to associate themselves with that and the way he handled that. And as a result, what do you call it? The whole city went in meltdown. It was an outpouring of outrage. You've seen today the reaction on social media. People are open to it because what the club have said is they are going to sort of engage with the fan base and they're going to get the fan base's thoughts on it. And I'll be honest with you, 95% of what I've seen online today is fucking bring it on. Bring it on, 200 million quid over the next 3-4 years.
Yeah. I think Davey's right when he's saying there, a sponsor at St James's Park would work fine. And I think William's got a great idea there. So we'll all chip in to the naming rights and we'll just call it Mike Ashley pitch at St James's Park. I think that's a fantastic idea, William. I'd love to hear Martin Tyler say that when he's there. We're live on Sky, mate. That'd be absolutely brilliant. Great job.
It'll always be St James's Park. It'll never change.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the conversation for another day is obviously the question of do you move to a new stadium and all that stuff. But, listen, football is a fickle game. No matter how attached our hearts are to St James's Park, if we are winning and, playing in top 4, playing Champions League, pushing for titles, if we're going to move a bit further down to, to the old arena site once that gets moved, to the Sage, which is going to be, I think I was just put back a couple of years. If Newcastle United are winning, playing Champions League football, some of the best players in the world, playing for them with an ownership that engages with the fans, as Lee rightly says, with a supporting officer, and Eddie Howe being as class as he is, the fans will be open to it. We won't be, against it because we haven't got an antagonistic owner, who basically, you would rob your grandma walking down the street, would you, like last time? So yeah, I think it's got to be moved.
it's a much bigger picture with a lot more moving parts than
Definitely.
one bloke sitting naming a stadium
Exactly.
for free. By the way, Sports
Yeah.
Direct at St James's Park.
No.
It was for free as per fucking usual. So yeah, a lot more moving parts on it, and there'll be a lot more communication. We know that. So yeah, it's going to be an emotive topic, and definitely want to pick up as I guess that progresses.
It rolls out. But just as one of the lads said before in the comments, I mean, it shows you how bad their commercial dealings were. The Fun 88 deal is less than our sleeve sponsor now, which is Noon. So that just shows you how undervalued that they sold the club at. But we'll move on to the next section as we're going to finish up here. So we've got one eye on Old Trafford at the weekend. I'm going to kick off with Lee because he's going down as he doesn't mind telling us in the comments. But Lee, just for you, how much is it refreshing of a change of mentality for you to go down to Manchester United and actually feel like we could turn these fuckers over for once, mate? Are you excited, mate?
Mr. Carter's going. Mr. Carter's going. I'm not.
Oh, sorry, PK. Sorry, mate. I thought when I read the comment, I thought you were going in his place, mate. Sorry, lads.
No. Listen, first things first. Yes, we go there with more hope than we've probably gone there with in a long time. But without wanting to piss on anybody's parade, it's still Old Trafford. It's a difficult place to go. 76,000 fans. It's an intimidating place to go for teams. It doesn't matter who you are. United have also won 4 of the last 5. Fucking hell, I'm hanging up now because I've just said that damned word.
You did,
Manchester United. Yes, sack me now.
That's a yellow card. Can we have some yellow cards for Lee in the comments, please, for using that.
They've won 4 of the last 5 games. You can edit that one out. But the key for me is belief. If we go there on Sunday, and we believe, truthfully, that we can get a result as a team of 11 players that take the park, I think they've actually absolutely got it in them with a fit Wilson, with Bruno being Bruno, Botman looking the way he's been looking for the last few weeks and what have you, Maxi potentially chomping at the bit. Yeah, and Joe Linton as well to come back in. Yeah, we've got a decent squad. We'll have a decent bench. We're very, very tight defensively. I think we've conceded 1 goal a game so far this season, and we're scoring at almost 2 goals a game, which is unheard of for a Newcastle side this early in the season. And United are shite defensively. They conceded 15 in 8 games, so they're conceding 2 goals a game, whilst we're scoring 2 goals a game. So the thing about me is we've got to get after them from the off. We've got to get after them in the very first half because they score nearly all of their goals in the first half. They score all of their goals. They've scored 11 out of their 15 goals a season in the first half. So if we can nullify them in the first half, I don't know whether it's a tiredness thing in the second half. I don't know whether the concentration lapses in the second half. So if we can get through that first half and still be in it at a 1-1, even a 1-0 down, there's nothing stopping us from what you call it, nicking something, pushing for even a win. I'm not going there in expectation. But as I say, I'm going there more in hope than I've seen in a long, long time as we head down to Old Trafford. One thing I know for a fact is they'll know they've been in a game more than they have done for a couple of seasons with Newcastle.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, mate. It's a great comment from Ash there. Watch your back, PK. I think you were getting hunted by the Scream Killer there, I think, behind you with the hood up. I did see.
Sorry,
that's them sneaking out.
That was my probation officer. Sorry, the wife.
he's got his ankle tag on. It's peeping away.
The other thing, just to add before we move on, just before you come in, so Man United would have played 2 games since we last played. They played on Sunday at Everton, and they play tonight against Newcastle. Yeah, so from a fatigue point of view, we should have the advantage. Pardon?
No, absolutely. What about Ronaldo missing that Lee said in the comments there? I knew he had a bit of bother about that phone issue, and Stu saying McTominay is suspended. That might be a blessing actually for Manchester.
Yeah, that's a shame that.
Yeah, it's a shame that. I'd love to see Bruno running ragged. But I know there's talk about Bruno's missus going at labour and stuff, isn't there? He might miss the game. I mean that's key for us. Obviously, we need Bruno to play. But are you feeling as confident, mate, going into this fixture, or do you think we still need to be a little bit mindful that we're, this is Old Trafford, this is still a tough game, regardless of how up and down Man United have been?
Lee called it, what is it, 74, 78,000, whatever it is. It'll be packed as always. there'll be 3, 4, maybe 5,000 screaming Newcastle lunatics as per usual, including us, which is great. But we've got nothing to fear going down there. As you know, Silver Stato again coming up with all those brilliant stats.
He's after Mark's job, I think. He's only had one day off of the sick and leaving after his job.
We've got nothing to fear going down there. You know, we are tight at the back. We are good in midfield and we score goals. So, you know, what have we got to be afraid of? Yes, they've got some they've got some individual match winners. That Anthony looks like a player. He should do for 80-odd million quid. But
and a prick, though. And a prick as well. He looks a prick, doesn't he? Like, I want someone to nail him big time.
Does he not pass the no dickhead policy?
No, but he just looks like a prick. Looks like the kind of guy who sell you shots in Faliraki. I want someone to nail him like in the first 5 minutes of the game. I don't like him.
They've got a bit of a shit defence, let's be honest. You know, I know Maguire hasn't been starting, but I think Lindelof started with Martinez at the weekend. Varane potentially is injured. I don't know. Diego Dallo at right back is garbage. So whoever can get at him can get at him. They can't decide whether to select Luke Shaw or their new signing, who I don't know what his name is. I can't remember. But they're quite small and they're not blessed with pace at the back. So
we're a big team now. Burn, Botman,
team,
Longstaff, we're big side,
We've had more corners than anybody in the league this season so far. I think we've scored from 2 set pieces in the last 2 games. So, you know, if we can get forward, we can get corners, we can get free kicks. We've got that wand of a right foot with Trippier playing. Hey, we can get at them, we can win. But I must admit, I've gone for a 2-1 defeat in the predicted league. Not that I'm giving it away, Lee. But you know what? We've got nothing to fear. I've seen 2 league games at Old Trafford with Newcastle. The first one, we lost 4-1. Dwight Gale scored the opening goal. I think Ibrahimovic scored for them. And we were 2-0 up with Kennedy and Muto after 8 minutes. A stonewall penalty, which was not given. And they went on and beat us with a late Alexis Sanchez header at 3-2 with Mourinho under a lot of pressure. You know, you tend to go to Old Trafford thinking we're going to get a bit of a hike in here, but we've got nothing to fear. So let's just go there, have a go at them, which we will, because we will not sit back and see how it goes. We're now to lose.
One thing that I'm really looking forward to is going to Old Trafford and looking at this huge arena and just knowing that we're a far, far, far better ran football club than they are now.
For the first time ever.
And safe in the knowledge that we will, and I say this, we call it absolutely honestly, we will overtake that club in the next 2 to 3 years, if not sooner.
I agree.
Because they're being ran into the ground and we're being ran correctly.
And their owners won't go either. You know, there was talk there, I think, I can't remember the guy's name. I don't know if it's Rothschild, is it? One of the richest guys in Britain. He's tried to buy them and they won't sell them. But just taking Lee's comment there. That's him, Radcliffe, yeah. So just taking Lee's comment there, left back for me, I think Target needs to come back in as good as Burn has been for the squad. I think Man United have pace out wide, and I'd be worried that Burn will get caught short. So for me, Target probably should come back in on that one, Lee. And looking at it.
Sorry, go on, jump in there. Dan Burn started every single league game since he signed, apart from one under Howe.
Do you think he'll start at left back then? Burn will stay?
No, don't know. I'd start Target personally because he has got more pace.
I would because the pace worries me. But Williams calling it now, Botman to get the first goal. I'd love that. He deserves it. The amount of headers he's won in the box, and he was unlucky against Fulham when Longstaff scored. And Stu's saying the battle of the Brunos. There's only one Bruno, isn't there, lads? To be fair, but we know he's going to win that. But I suppose prediction for me, as much as I'm positive about going down there, and I'll get your lads' predictions. I think you've already said 2-1 PK, but I think for me, I'm going to go 1s each. I know that might sound a bit negative, but I think if we can leave Old Trafford with a draw, then I think that's a decent result still. What do you think, Lee? For you, what's your take on your prediction for me?
I'm going balls deep, mate. We're going to win 2-1.
Oh, 2-1 win. And you're going 2-1 defeat, PK. Is that how you want to leave that?
Well, no, I'm not. I can't. I don't know if it's for 2-1, but I'm going to take us to win 3-2.
Because you turn more than Bruno in the middle, mate. I tell you.
Yeah, I know. If we win, Lee, you've got to leave the car in Manchester, come out in the piss with us.
Oh, what's a So, well, if Mrs. Forster's watching this, just that's on the record. I did not suggest that. So don't go
No, I
and
did.
just go and look for PK. But I think, yeah, to be honest with you, lads, just one way to end that, I suppose, is that it's great to look forward to these games again with no fear, as you rightly say. Going with confidence. We're one of the most informed teams in the league. We're one of the most excited teams to watch in the league. We've got players bang at it. Bring them on. We're not scared of them. We'll do them. You know what I mean? Let's smash them.
And if we do lose, let's not have a meltdown about it.
No, we won't do.
There won't be any meltdown. There won't be any meltdown.
Absolutely. I think Lee's saying Man United red card if we win 3-1. Jody Jack thinks 3-1 as well. Ash is going for 1-1. He did send his podcast, cough cough. So go follow Ash's podcast as well if he's got one going there. So I told you I'll plug you, Ash. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pull you up for it. So yeah, that's us all wrapped up for this week of Evermore, guys. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments as always. It really helps it flow. And as I mentioned at the start, if you're new to the channel, I have seen a couple of names I haven't seen before. Please remember to click that button, like and subscribe. Come and join us. It's all free content. So we don't charge anybody. Times are tough at the minute. And we just love talking about Newcastle United as you guys do. And just come and join us. There's plenty more to come. So for me and the lads, let's keep supporting that team. We'll call United. Let's hope for 3 points at the weekend. These two are here. So hopefully there'll be good luck charms. And we'll catch you next time in Evermore. See you later, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.